Hey guys, I'm going to finish the examples that we started in the last video. Sorry I ran out of time. This Screencast-O-Matic only gives you 15 minutes. You may not need all of these examples. Excuse me. But since we're just getting started for the semester, I want to make sure I give you plenty of examples as we go through. I may not give you quite as many in the future. So we were talking about explicit and implicit functions, and now we are solving for functions using function notation and evaluating for functions. So I left off on number 8, so we're going to pick up on number 9. Okay, so again, this is p of x, so x is 4. This is just the name of our function. So we're going to leave that. We can fill in the 4 if we want to, but that's just the name of our function. So we're going to have p of x, or p of 4, since we're substituting 4 in. And every place we see an x in the equation, we're going to substitute 4 in. So up here we're going to have 4 plus 1 on top. On the bottom, I'm going to have 2 parentheses 4 squared plus 4 times 4 minus 13. Okay. Now, evaluate that. 4 plus 1 on top is 5. Just add those together. And then down here, we've got to do order of operations. So you do 4 squared, which is 16, and then 16 times 2, or 32. And then plus 4 times 4 is 16 minus 13. And then you add those up. 32 plus 16 minus 13 is going to give you 35. Since those are both multiples of 5, you can reduce that to 1 over 7. So if I have p of 4, that means my x is 4, p of x, f of x, q of x, m of x, anything x, function notation, that's the same as y, so that would be 1/7. So basically you can read this as your x is 4 and your y, p of x, equals 1/7. Okay, now I'm not going to do all of these. Again, number 10, especially look for order of operations. Make sure you don't lose that. Let's look at number 11 together since it's a square root, and make sure we do that correctly. So we're going to have q of x. Again, x is what they give us. So that's just the name of our function. And then we have 6 minus 2 times x, and we're going to plug negative 15 in for x. Now with the square root, you work underneath the radical first. Again, the left side's just the name of the function. This just says we're taking negative 15 and substituting it in our function q. Okay, so square root of 6, we've got negative 2 times negative 15, which is positive 30. Order of operations, you multiply first. 6 plus 30 is 36. And the square root of 36 is 6. Okay. Now, number 12, we're going to substitute negative 10 in. So we're going to say our function p at negative 10. Don't know why I drew that line there. Give me just a second to find the eraser. All right, so we've got absolute value of 1/2 times x. X is negative 10. Substitute that in. And all of that's inside absolute value. So the absolute value will be evaluated last. So we're going to do half of negative 10. Half of negative 10 is negative 5. And then we're going to do negative 5 minus 14, or negative 19. Now, last but not least, we evaluate the absolute value of negative 19, which is 19. So p of negative 10 equals 19. So this says x is negative 10 and our y is 19. Okay? All right, moving on. All right, let's look at 13 since the x is the exponent this time. Okay, so again, we're going to have f of 4, that's the name of the function, equals 5 times negative 3 raised to the 4th power. Since x is the power, is raised to that power. So we do order of operations. You do powers before you multiply. So negative 3 to the 4th power is 81. Since it's an even power, it's going to be even. So 5 times 81, and that equals 405, I believe. So f of 4 equals 405. Okay. All right, so all of these you can see are working pretty much the exact same way. Okay. Before I shut this off, let's just go over one that has a variable in it just to make sure you know how to do that. So if you skip down to number 16, number 16 says g of negative 5c. Let's see what we got down here. Let's see which one looks the best. All right, so we've got negative 5c, we've got 2a plus 7, and we've got m minus 1. Okay, so we might look at a couple of these. Let's look at number 16 and then check out either 17 or 18 to make sure you know what you're doing here. Okay. All right. So for 16, we're going to take negative 5c. That's our x. And we're going to plug it in to our function. So we've got g of negative 5c is equal to 3 times negative 5c, and then put negative 5c here, plus 5. So you can see I just added the parentheses first, and then I'm going to go back in and substitute negative 5c, negative 5c. Okay? All right, so if that's the name of the function, leave it alone. I've got negative 15c minus 10, all divided by negative 5c plus 5. Now, you can't reduce these individually, but if they all have something in common where these are joined with pluses and minuses, that means they're binomials. So you can't separate just part of it. You have to reduce all 4 parts by the same thing. Since all of these are divisible by 5, you can reduce each term by 5. So this one you can actually reduce. 5 goes into negative 15c, 3c, and 5 goes into negative 10 twice. Okay, so I'm actually factoring out a negative 5 to make these positive here. Okay, all right, so negative 5c, you can factor out a negative 5 or reduce it by negative 5, you get positive c. And negative 5 into positive 5 is just negative 1. Okay. So that's number 16. All right, if we look down at 17 or 18, both of those kind of look the same to me. So let's just look at them a second and see which one we need to do. Okay, so number 17, you're going to plug in a binomial, 2a plus 7. Number 18, you're going to plug in a binomial, m minus 1. Okay, so you're either going to have to square a binomial in number 17, or you're going to have to cube a binomial in number 18. So let's look at number 17 and see what happens here. All right, so if I substitute in 2a plus 7, I may run out of room here since this is going to be a big problem. I may have to use some space from the other spots there. So I'm going to put in 2a plus 7 squared. And I'm squaring the whole thing because x is squared and now this whole thing is x. And then I'm going to have minus, and the minus is outside the parentheses, but I still have 2a plus 7 because my x is negative. The negative goes around the whole x, so that's why it goes outside the parentheses, and then minus 1. All right, so once I get to there, okay, again, that's the name of my function over here. I'm going to scoot the equals over just a little bit to give me more room. A binomial squared is the same thing as 2a plus 7 and times 2a plus 7 minus 2a plus 7 minus 1. Okay, so a lot of people make a mistake here because they try to square the first term and square the second term, and then they forget the middle term. We'll talk about this a little bit later in more detail about how you can do this with a formula or a shortcut, but right now just do FOIL. So you've got 4a squared, first times first, and then you got outside and inside. So I've got 14a plus 14a, and that gives me 28a together, and then 7 times 7 is 49. And then I have minus 2a, and then I distribute the negative and have negative 7 as well. Bring down the negative 1, and then combine like terms. All right, so I only have one squared term, so 4a squared stays by itself. I have 28 and negative 2, so I've got plus 26a, and I've got 49 minus 7 minus 1, so it's going to be plus 41. Okay, so number 18 is going to be the same way, except over here where it says x cubed, you're going to do m minus 1 times m minus 1 times m minus 1. So it's going to be a lengthy process there. And then you'll have to do all of that and then multiply it by 4 and then add 7. Okay? All right, so getting through the notes so you can get started on your assignment. All right, this one says use the graph. Okay, let's look at the graph here. I keep drawing, but I don't mean to. All right, so if I scroll over to where I can see the graph, what I'm going to do is look at the graph to find the answer, and this is hopefully not too difficult. If you scroll over and find x is negative 1, because this says f of 1, that means your x is 1. So if I find x is 1, what is my y value? So I got to find the function, and it would be that point right there on your graph. So if you come down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 1, 9 is a point. So that would just be 9. Okay. So negative 2. If I look here and I go negative 2, what point is on that graph? That would just be 0. And if I go over to 5, so I'm going to scroll over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to go up here, and whatever that point is, that would be my answer there. And if it's 0, so when x is 0, I come down here and I figure out what that point is. So I believe that is negative 8, and I believe this one is 6. All right, thanks for watching the video. I hope you do great on your homework. If you need help, let me know.